All right. Well, excited for our session today. Um, as people start to get logged in, please let me know who you are, where you're coming from. As you get logged into the chat here, feel free to go ahead and um, tell me where you're located. I'm really excited about this topic overall. I think this is something that's going to be highly applicable no matter whether you're in HR or otherwise. I think it's relevant for the current market conditions. So definitely not specific to HiredScore, the company I work with, or even the HR tech category for that matter. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. So I'm just going to wait for some folks to get in here, and then we'll get moving. Some important reminders as we get started here. Please feel free to chat in as you're joining. Great to see some folks. We got some folks from Israel on board. That's exciting. Halfway across the world. So feel free to chat in. My overall goal here is to get generally 1 to 2 takeaways for everybody listening that you can take back, hopefully implement. Also, I did want to let everybody know our session is being recorded. So if you're interested in anything I cover, later on I'll give access to a QR code where you can request information that I covered today, including some of the slides. All right. Well, again, for those of you joining, if you're just joining, please make sure chat in. Let me know where you're located. Make sure to chat in general. We'll definitely try and pay attention and handle your questions. And other than that, let's go ahead and get started. So topic today is, in the face of recession, why investing in AI can be a really smart and clever HR strategy. And so for everybody who doesn't know me or joining live, don't love to talk about me, but a couple quick notes. I've been in HR tech for the last 15, 16 years. This is my third HR tech company. So working in talent technology now for quite some time. I've gotten to see a lot of the different technology life cycles and have been working here at HiredScore for the last 6 years in the AI category, and have seen the evolution of AI, particularly in the HR category in the recent years. So excited to share some thoughts on that with everybody. I'm going to go ahead and move the slides to make them a little bit easier for everybody to see. So the format here, we're gonna talk about, I think, first of all, the current market conditions. We're going to talk about why HR gets impacted heavily in a slowdown and what some of those impacts probably will look like. We're then going to talk about generally why AI. I think more and more people know the answer to why AI, but we'll definitely go through why AI in general. And then why AI in particular in a recession, which is the purpose of our topic today. So some really exciting takeaways that, in fact, some that I think are counterintuitive. You might not think of right away, but really great reasons to be investing now. Well, I'll even cover a couple tips for buying AI. Again, these are generic, not specific to my company. And then we'll wrap up with any Q&A. So let's dive in. The current market, what are we looking at today? We're hearing lots of news, work with a lot of clients globally and hear a range of different things. But if we sort of look at what the market is telling us and where we're headed today, we have some assumptions. One is that 2022 was a very large sort of theme around resignation, changes. It included at one point incredible demand on hiring recruiters and in the need to handle the talent. There are lots of talks of burnout and what was necessary to just a year ago to handle that kind of volume. Fast forward a year later, we are seeing job gains that are still steady based on the economy, but there's some very early caution indicators and a lot of certain news cycles that are telling us about what's happening. We certainly have heard of the tech layoffs. And then there's certainly some themes like that coming out of the financial sectors as well. You've probably seen the news of the Goldmans and the BlackRocks and the like. There's a lot of debate about the severity of slowdown. And again, I'm not a financial analyst here to tell you what to do with your money, but we're seeing certain different, whether it be soft landing, whether this will end up being a hard recession. Again, not here to talk about that, but we can agree that 2023 is not going to look like 21 or 22. What I can say is this: I was in Disney World with my family for the last 4 days, and based on the crowds, attendance, lines, and rides, you wouldn't think that there's anything going on. So if that's any indicator, but remains to be seen. Anyway, we're here to talk about what that means for AI and HR. So let's dive in. So, what are the potential impacts of an HR slowdown or slowdown on HR? Um, things that universally are generally agreed to, and then some potential things here. So first of all, we imagine that hiring would decline, especially external hiring. We imagine that probably application volume could increase if layoffs would continue. So it's sort of a balancing act. As one thing suffers, the other thing increases. There's more people that need jobs, and more workers enter the market as uncertainty increases. You definitely see a shift from external hiring to internal hiring, which means that the job conversion for external candidates becomes more difficult as companies want to retain the existing employees they have. We also see a reduction in contract recruiters, RPOs, and other buffers that are used to sort of offset the volume. So we have this huge uptick in volume last year, and now we need to offset that this year. So that's certainly something that could be anticipated. Certainly less budgets for tools, consultants, any improvements overall, fewer resources to implement new solutions because, again, where the budgets aren't there and the people have other projects they're working on. We're hearing a lot of noise around the focus shifting to optimizing what we have bought. So take the things that we've purchased, take the tools, the processes, and really kind of button those up. So that's certainly something to look for. And then we are hearing news of lower ROI solutions that were bought based on marketing promises or other could be reduced in terms of licenses or canceled altogether. So these are some of the things we're hearing. If you are on the chat, please, if there's anything else you anticipate or are hearing or are seeing, feel free to add those here to the chat. Would love to hear any additional thoughts as well. All right, so from here, we're going to take a quick, I'm going to breeze through this part as quick as possible because I think a lot of the market knows this, but some real quick reminders why AI automation can free up humans from complex or repetitive tasks. We know that. We hear that a lot about. Improved decision making, so augment the human to make better, faster, quicker decisions. Certainly predictive aspects of AI, so can predict trends, allowing people to make choices ahead of time that would have otherwise be avoided or avoid mistakes, save time later on. AI can certainly lend to personalization for better satisfaction and loyalty. Scalability, AI is super quick and can deal with lots of data. So you have a quick scale up, scale down. Cost effective. So certainly there's lots of promises of AI reducing costs based on some of those automation opportunities. ROI shouldn't be overlooked. One of the things that's nice about AI is it's much easier when you're replacing something that somebody else was doing and that you are measuring. It's much easier to measure the impact of that change versus a lot of systems that have a lot of different functionalities and complexities, as sometimes harder to understand exactly what the impact of those tools are. And then flexibility. AI can automate tasks across work streams, improving productivity. So these are lots of the reasons we want AI. Now, why AI in a potential downturn? This is the crux of our conversation. And again, welcome any ideas from the audience here, but we're really looking to make sure that we're focused on why now. So what's interesting is in a downturn, AI can actually be a very, very strong investment. And the reason is, and it goes back to a little bit of that ROI statement that we inferred, irregardless of a recession, is the certainty of impact. So what's happening now with AI not being as much of a nascent technology in HR and started a lot of really strong use cases from scoring and matching to candidate scheduling and chat and many other examples of AI use cases, we're starting to see a lot of market examples where those are working, adoption is happening, and impact is being recorded, measured, and reported. So that certainty of impact sometimes is actually going to be greater than, again, a lot of other larger scale implementations and the ability to measure and see those impacts. The second is time to value. So in a recessionary environment where maybe, my resources are less, some of the other assumptions that we talked about earlier, maybe my business shifts, time to value becomes very important because if I can get something purchased, I can get something implemented, and I can get it in the hands of my recruiters, my hiring managers, or I can get it augmenting a process. then the really cool thing here is that I can actually see value quickly. And that's really important in a time like this because we're trying to adjust to market conditions. And so we want to be able to do so quickly. If I buy big systems, even systems that could have AI embedded in them, I might be waiting 9 to 12 months for all the other things that need to get done. So again, this is not a don't do systems. It's just why sort of AI vendors that have very specific use cases can be highly valuable during these times. So I see Amit asking, AI combined with HRMS, I think is absolutely, we're going to get to, we talked about a theme earlier, Amit, with internal mobility. I view a lot of the use cases for especially employees, especially whether it's reskilling, upskilling, internal movement. These are going to be very powerful use cases for AI in this environment because companies will want to focus on the people they have, retain them, and certainly make sure that they're successful. There's even really cool use cases like redeployment, depending on if something's no longer available, how do you take an employee and move them over there? So I think the use cases there are not only exciting, broad, but highly impactful in this kind of environment. So very supportive of AI combined with HRMS. Hopefully I got to what you were asking there, but feel free to add more. Amount of resources required to implement. A lot of the AI initiatives are augmenting something like an HRMS or an ATS or other tools that are already in place. So they don't require as much change per the earlier point, which is why you can get them sooner. But then they also don't require as many resources. A lot of times they're not going to require to traditionally like a bigging in like an SI or a big implementation shop. Nothing against those. They're great, but you're not going to need this heavy lift to get something live. And so again, cost, internal resources can be much less. The other point is reduce risk. When you're integrating AI into an existing process versus changing an entire process, you're going to eliminate, sort of the upfront investment, a lot of the change management. So that mitigates risk, and it can be tested in particular use cases. So I could start off with an AI that does, scheduling for recruiters, and there's a lot of cool companies that do that. That's a very simple use case that everybody would say adds a lot of value for the candidate, for internal, saves a lot of time, and can add immediate value and isn't very risky, for example. There's certainly implications you need to think through, but again, the risk isn't as prevalent in a use case like that. In something like what we do, something like redeploying talent or rediscovering talent that's already in systems, that's a great example of something that we'd love for the humans to do. They're probably not going to get to. So the value of recirculating talent, as an example, low risk, extremely high value, and saves a ton of money. So you've got these really low risk use cases you can deploy and very quickly and then build and iterate on them. So very exciting. Now, 3 reasons that I think sometimes may be counterintuitive, but in my opinion, could be the strongest reasons to consider AI, especially when it's a downturn. Because remember, we've got a really hard budget argument to make. I've got AI to deploy that could help me, but how do I really convince the business that this is going to help us beyond the reasons I just outlined? And here are, in my opinion, the big differentiators. One is it shouldn't be overlooked that in a time like this, employees become fearful. I think some of the shift is going back from the employee back to the employer. I've certainly seen news and understanding around that. And so employees become a little bit hesitant. And so when you can give something back to employees, hiring managers, recruiters at a time like this, that seems like a company that cares a lot. And so anything that helps with productivity, that can help with satisfaction, especially if you're going to ask them to do more, which is like, hey, we're going to give you more workload since we have less people to help support that, especially if there's jobs been eliminated. These types of investments can be seen as very highly valuable because it shows that you're supporting them even when things are getting particularly tougher and budgets are scarcer. The second thing is change management. This is again, every customer I talk to will definitely agree this is counterintuitive, but the best time to roll out solutions can honestly be when there are not as many things going on. So think about it this way, if volumes are low and I can give you a new solution, I arguably have more time to actually pay attention to the solution than when volumes are way high. You give me a great new tool, I can't even take my eye off the prize called doing the work I know how to do the way I know how to do it, let alone do it in any augmented change way. Because if I take a day even to mess up, even if this new thing is good, at least I know how to do the thing I know how to do today. So there's this interesting like psychological thing when we're at sort of our peak as a human being. How do we take our eyes off of that to be able to focus on something new? And so this can be really good times. We've had customers go through their own versions of downturns, hiring freezes, roll out AI solutions, and come out of those freezes with optimal adoption, locked in vision. Change management has been very high. And so again, that's a very strong reason to consider actually rolling out tools right now. The third, and honestly, one of the most compelling, is going to be competitive advantage. So what happens is when in HR cuts, it's always they're going to cut in HR, so they're going to reduce recruiters, people, et cetera, reduce hiring. And then what happens at some point is inevitably going to come back. That could be a year from now, 2 years from now. We hope it's as quick as possible, but we imagine that that'll ramp back up, or maybe again, there's no impact and companies are just being conservative now. Again, I'm not forecasting the market, but when it is time to come back, the people who will come back the quickest are those that have things already in place to ramp back up. And what's going to be better than an AI solution that can allow people to ramp back quicker, so take on more work quickly? Onboard new recruiters, because I'm going to have to now hire back either old recruiters or new recruiters to take on that volume. And if I can give them an augmented process day one, allows them to work quicker, faster, now they're immediately more impactful to my business in a quicker amount of time. And I can get to the high value candidates when they do come back on the market and that faucet turns back on. I can get to them quicker than the competition because I'm already resourced with the AI solutions to be able to get to those people right away. So these are really competitive, long-term thinking reasons. It's hard in an environment like this to think long-term, but if you can convince the business, this can be a huge competitive advantage for your company and your recruiting organization all at once. And Amit, waiting for the day, you said, update my goals, reach 24 and apply time off for the first hours. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how companies continue to understand employee feedback and those ways, but it's certainly a great point. All right, we are nearing the tail end here. I want to open up to Q&A, but I wanted to give you a cool example of these things being deployed. So what we see here is an example. Again, this happens to be HiredScore, but it could be, I'm just giving you as generic example as possible of an AI impact to a process that has huge gains working with the human. So not replacing the human, but augmenting them to put companies ahead. So this is a sourcing AI that rediscovers any past applicants that are in an employer's database, and it does it automatically. So what we see, for example, with some companies is, a time to find a hard to fill job could take 10 days just to get the applicant. It could take another 5 days to present them to the hiring manager. The rest of the process could take 55 days. That's interviews, background checks, competitive interviews, selecting a finalist. And then overall, you're looking at 7 days time to fill. Here's an example where an AI shortcut that entire process. You had a candidate delivered within an hour of the job being open to a sourcer. That sourcer was able to then work with the recruiter, present that to the hiring manager the same day the job was opened. Rest of the process took 24 days because this candidate possibly had already been through interviews. And now you have a time to fill of 25 days. This is a real life example. AI being implemented, AI improving a process, causing dramatic business impact, and time to be able to deploy a solution like this under 120 days, for example. So again, making a tough decision to deploy something, fight for that budget in a time where things are tight, high impact to the business, high outcomes. These are great examples of why AI can be so beneficial to businesses, especially at a time like this. The other thing is the flexibility to shift business priorities. Again, it could go from internals to externals quickly. It could be about D&I initiatives, which won't go away during a time like these. So something to consider. I wanted to leave you all with some tips for buying AI. Real quick, get specific about business impact and ROI. The use cases are pretty strong and the ROI should be there. So make sure to ask for vendors or clients for results. Make sure to get those references. Clients should be able to tell you what's happening and how it's impacting their business. Make sure the vendor can integrate seamlessly with your existing stack. The biggest bet here is integration with current tools is going to drive that impact and depth of impact and that ease of change that we reference. So if they're not integrating, even if it's a great use case, make sure they're integrated with the tools you have. Make sure that AI is not a secondary feature. There's a lot of cool companies out there. I have friends at a lot of those companies. Nothing wrong with those companies adding AI, but when you're making an AI specific bet, my only point is just be careful that it's not a secondary feature that got added on, that hasn't been validated, tested. Maybe it's a beta. We really just want to make sure those use cases are tried and true, referenceable, have consideration for all these complex things, privacy, compliance, ethics that shouldn't be overlooked. And we could do hour-long sessions on those on LinkedIn as well. And then get close to your third-party AI solution providers, software vendors. Listen to what the customers are saying, listen to what the market is saying. So make sure you get that third-party validation as well. And I'll leave you with this, and then we can leave it open to Q&A. A really quick formula I love for evaluating tools. I teach my customers about it. It served me well. I was taught this. I can't take credit from this, from a gentleman, Ryan, who presented this concept to me. But this formula is results plus certainty divided by time to go live and work required should help you understand the likelihood of that thing being successful. So if I can get high certainty with quantifiable results, and I can ensure that time to go live is short and the work required to get that thing live is minimal, then I have a pretty solid solution that I can lock in and probably have a lot of confidence moving forward with, especially in a downtime where I'm looking for, I can't afford not to, deploy something that's going to nail the outcome. So hopefully this is helpful. Love to open it up for any questions from the audience if there are any. So we'll move real quickly into any questions. If you do like what we covered today, also feel free to scan this QR code, shoot us a note. I'd be happy to share the slides and information if it's helpful for your own internal discussions, or if you have other informations from anything I cover, other questions on anything I covered today. All right, we'll open up for questions if there are any from the audience. And Amit, thanks for all your great contributions earlier. Any questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, if not, we'll probably go ahead and wrap this session. It's been great to talk to you. It's an important topic. It's not easy to make cases for things you absolutely need in a tough time, but hopefully this has given you some things to think about. Whether it's similar solution to this, it could even be outside, like I said, the HR category, but great ways to have those conversations, and hopefully one or two takeaways that could be powerful for you all today. Thanks everybody for the time, and great to see everyone.